Good morning, sixth grade. So we are going to continue with chapter 11, starting on lesson 3 today, which is the end of the Republic. So let's go ahead and get started on this, and we'll have the questions embedded as we go along.
Lesson 3. The End of the Republic. It matters because without a strong system of checks and balances, a powerful individual or group can easily take control of a representative government. Problems in the Republic. Guiding question. What factors led to the decline of the Roman Republic? The Roman army won victories abroad, but the Republic faced mounting economic troubles at home. The gap between the rich and the poor grew wider. Many farmers faced financial ruin. The cities of the Republic were becoming overcrowded and dangerous. Romans, rich and poor. Most Romans were plebeians who farmed small plots of land. The plebeians had made some political gains in the Roman Republic, but they lacked real power. Power was still held by the patricians. The upper class still made up most of the Senate and served in key government positions. They also managed Rome's finances and directed its wars. In the 100s BC, farmers began to fall into poverty and debt. Why? Many small farmers had neglected their fields while fighting in Roman wars. Others had their farms destroyed by the Carthaginians. Now the farmers did not have crops to harvest. As a result, they could not pay back loans they owed. In addition, small farmers could not compete with wealthy Romans who owned latifundia, or large farming estates. Farmers could not even find jobs on these huge farms. Those jobs went to a new source of labor, the thousands of prisoners captured in the Roman wars. Wealthy landowners did not have to pay wages to enslaved workers. Instead, they bought more land for their latifundia. Small farms were pushed out of business. As small farms shut down, thousands of poor, unemployed people left the countryside. They poured into Rome's cities looking for jobs. Even in the cities, however, enslaved people did most of the work. Paying jobs were hard to find. If free people could find a paying job, it was generally for a low wage. Desperate economic conditions created mounting anger among the poor. Roman leaders worried about a rebellion. To prevent a revolt, Roman leaders began offering cheap food and free entertainment to the poor. Numerous Roman rulers used this policy of bread and circuses to acquire or stay in power. Roman reformers. Not all wealthy Romans ignored the problems of the poor. Two government officials, who were also brothers, worked for reforms. Tiberius and Gaius Gracchus thought that Rome's problems were caused by the actions of wealthy landowners. The brothers wanted to stop the wealthy from taking over small farms to create their latifundia. They urged the Senate to take some land from the latifundia and return it to the poor. The Senate was made up of wealthy Romans, some of whom owned the latifundia. They fought the Gracchus brothers' proposals. A group of senators even killed Tiberius in 133 BC. Gaius was also murdered 12 years later. Dark days had fallen on the Roman Republic. The people charged with making and upholding the laws repeatedly broke them. Roman politics and the army. The Republic soon faced more challenges. Rome's military leaders began to seek political power. In 107 BC, a general named Marius became consul. Marius, the son of a worker, was not a patrician. Marius believed that he could solve Rome's economic problems. He transformed the army in order to provide opportunities for the poor. Until then, only property owners served in the military. Marius, however, recruited soldiers from the landless poor. In return for their service, he paid them wages and promised them land. The Roman army was no longer a force of citizen volunteers. It was now a force of professional soldiers. The plan that Marius put into action provided work for many jobless, landless Romans. However, it also weakened the republican form of government. Soldiers felt more loyalty to the general who hired and paid them than to the republic. As a result, military generals grew enormously powerful. Some generals sought political office. This allowed them to pass laws that gave land to their soldiers and increased their power. The creation of a professional army led to new power struggles. Marius was soon opposed by another general named Sulla, who commanded his own army. In 82 BC, Sulla drove his enemies out of Rome and named himself dictator. It marked the first time a Roman general had led his army into the capital. Over the next 3 years, Sulla made changes to the government. He reduced the power of the tribunes and gave the senators more responsibilities. Sulla then stepped down as dictator. Sulla hoped that his reforms would restore the Roman Republic to its earlier days of glory. Instead, Rome plunged into conflict that lasted for the next 50 years. Some Romans took notice of how Sulla had used an army to achieve his goals. Those who were eager for power decided that they would do the same thing. Progress check. Analyzing. What was the purpose of bread and circuses? The rise of Julius Caesar. Guiding question. How did Julius Caesar rise to power in Rome? After Sulla left office, different Roman leaders fought among themselves for power. Many of them were military officials who relied on their loyal armies to support them. In 60 BC, 3 men ruled the Roman Republic: Crassus, Pompey, and Julius Caesar. Crassus was a general and one of Rome's wealthiest men. Pompey and Caesar were also rich and known for their military accomplishments. These 3 men formed the first triumvirate to rule Rome. A triumvirate is a political group of 3 people who share equal power. Caesar's conquests. Each triumvirate member commanded a military post in an outlying area of the Roman Republic. Pompey led in Spain, Crassus in Syria, and Caesar in Gaul. Gaul was made up mostly of what are now France and Belgium. While serving in Gaul, Caesar fought the Celts and invaded Britain. He won the admiration and support of the poorer classes. Roman senators grew uneasy with Caesar, however. They feared that he was becoming too popular and would seek power as Sulla had. By 50 BC, the first triumvirate no longer existed. Crassus had died in battle, and Pompey emerged as Caesar's main rival. In 49 BC, the Senate gave its support to Pompey. It ordered Caesar to give up his army and return to Rome. Caesar, however, refused. He knew that if he returned to Rome, he might be imprisoned or killed by his rivals. Caesar gathered his loyal troops and crossed the Rubicon River. This small river separated Caesar's military command area from Roman Italy. According to legend, Caesar saw a vision that inspired him to cross the Rubicon. He exclaimed to his troops, primary source, "Even yet we may draw back, but once across yon little bridge, and the whole issue is with the sword. Take we the course which the signs of the gods and false dealings of our foes point out. The die is cast." From Life of Julius Caesar by Suetonius. Caesar had refused to obey the Senate and was now marching on Rome. He realized that he was starting a civil war. His decision, however, could not be reversed. Caesar and his soldiers swiftly captured all of Italy. They drove Pompey's forces out of the country. The fighting then spread eastward, with Caesar finally crushing Pompey's army in Greece in 48 BC. Caesar takes power. In 44 BC, Caesar took over the Roman government. He ended the practice of dictators serving in office for short terms by declaring himself dictator for life. To strengthen his power, Caesar appointed people to the Senate who supported him. Meanwhile, Caesar introduced reforms that made him popular with Romans, especially the poor. He gave citizenship to many people living in Roman territories. He created jobs for the unemployed. In the countryside, he organized new settlements for landless laborers. He ordered landowners using slave labor to hire more free workers. One of the most famous reforms that Caesar introduced was the creation of a new calendar. It had 12 months, 365 days, and a leap year. Known as the Julian calendar, it was used throughout Europe until AD 1582. Then it was changed slightly to become the Gregorian calendar. The Gregorian calendar is based on the date of the birth of Jesus. This calendar is still used by most countries in the world today. Many Romans praised Caesar as a wise ruler because he brought peace and good government to Rome. Others, however, hated him. They believed that he wanted to be a king. Caesar's enemies, led by the senators Brutus and Cassius, plotted to kill him. In 44 BC, Caesar's opponents gathered around him as he entered the Senate and stabbed him to death. Caesar was killed on March 15th, also known as the Ides of March in the Julian calendar. His murder was made famous in the play Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare. In the play, Caesar was warned to beware the Ides of March. Progress check. Explaining. Why did some Romans oppose Caesar? Connections to today. Crossing the Rubicon. Caesar crossed the Rubicon at great risk. Even today, the phrase crossing the Rubicon is used when a person makes a decision that cannot be undone. From Republic to Empire. Guiding question. How did Rome become an empire? After Caesar's death, civil war broke out. Caesar's 18-year-old grandnephew, Octavian, joined two of Caesar's top generals, Mark Antony and Marcus Lepidus. The three leaders' forces defeated those who killed Caesar. In 43 BC, they formed the Second Triumvirate. Next, they divided the Roman Empire among themselves. Octavian took command of Italy and the West. Antony ruled in Greece and the East. Lepidus took charge in North Africa. Antony and Cleopatra. The Second Triumvirate, however, did not last long. Lepidus retired from politics. Soon, Octavian and Antony became rivals. Antony fell in love with the Egyptian queen Cleopatra. Together they formed an alliance. Octavian accused Antony and Cleopatra of plotting against Rome. According to Octavian, Antony planned to make himself the sole ruler of the Republic with Cleopatra's help. Many Romans grew alarmed at this news. Their support enabled Octavian to declare war on Antony. In 31 BC, Octavian and Antony's navies clashed off the coast of Greece. At the Battle of Actium, Octavian's forces defeated those of Antony and Cleopatra. Within a year, Octavian captured Alexandria and made Egypt Roman territory. Antony and Cleopatra killed themselves to avoid being captured by Octavian. Octavian became the supreme ruler of Rome. The civil wars had ended, and so too did the Roman Republic. Octavian, a new direction. Octavian could have made himself a lifelong dictator. However, he knew that many Romans favored a republic. These Romans were influenced by Cicero, who was a well-known political leader and writer in Rome. Cicero strongly supported the representative republican government. Cicero also did not trust dictators. Throughout Rome's civil wars, Cicero had argued that a representative government should be restored to Rome. He died before Octavian rose to power. Cicero's ideas, however, would influence the writers of the United States Constitution centuries later. Publicly, Octavian voiced his support for a republic. Privately, however, Octavian felt differently. He believed that a republican government was too weak to solve Rome's problems. Octavian felt that Rome needed a strong leader. With a strong and loyal army supporting Octavian, the Senate consented to his wishes. It declared Octavian consul, tribune, and commander-in-chief for life in 27 BC. Octavian, however, took the title Augustus, or the Majestic One. Caesar Augustus, as Octavian was now called, became Rome's first emperor, or all-powerful ruler. Progress check. Predicting. How do you think Cicero might have reacted when the Senate named Octavian the first emperor of Rome?